Hello everybody and welcome to the United Stand. Manchester United 2, Burnley 0. The battle for man of the match is already going off in the live comments. We'll talk about that in a moment. But I just want to say this, and look, we have very little to be happy about as United fans. And I wish it could be Christmas every year. I wish it could be Christmas every day. Because I tell you what, we've had some cracking gifts at Manchester United this Christmas, haven't we? Newcastle gifted us a couple of goals. Burnley have gifted us a couple of goals. And we've took 6 points. So look, hopefully, I said Christmas may be coming towards an end, but it's an exciting time for United ahead with January transfer window, Arsenal New Year's Day, cup games against Man City and Wolves. And look, the onus or anus or whatever you want to call it, Manchester United Football Club, Ed Woodward and co. Look, we are a point off top 4 tonight and we've just won a game of football and we are 7 points ahead of Arsenal is what I was going to say. And look, Liverpool are our biggest rival and they are absolutely wiping the floor with us. It's embarrassing that we're ending this decade, and I call it a decade because it's been a decade, hasn't it? It's been a terrible 10 years for United. Well, certainly the last 6 or 7. But Liverpool are miles ahead of us. But Arsenal have been the gobby little people for the last 2 or 3 years going, we're slightly better than you. We are 5th and you are 6th and all that jazz. Well, we're 7 points ahead of Arsenal tonight and we're playing them on New Year's Day. And we go to Emirates and wipe more of that smile off their face with our deadly attacking football, but counter-attacking football. But there is some negatives to talk about. We'll do about that in a moment. But massive 3 points for Manchester United. I think it is a battle between Fred and Brandon Williams for man of the match, which we'll talk about in a moment. And if you agree with me on that one, smash a like on video. But look, I think today was one of those cliche games with United where it was really important that we got the 3 points. I thought the game management in the second half was poor. I actually think that game today could easily have been a 1-0 loss or a draw. I didn't see, and I think this is a positive, so bear with me, I didn't see much of a difference in United's performance today than I did against Watford when we lost, or West Ham when we lost, or Newcastle away when we lost. I don't think there was a hell of a lot of difference. I just think things went our way more than they did in those games. And you look at the first goal, it's a mistake by Burnley. Pereira pounces on it. Pereira, if you give Pereira space, can deliver a pass. Martial one-on-one is going to score 9 out of 10. And he does. And we're 1-0 up and Burnley are chasing the game. Second half, I really thought, that we are the young, Ollie in his press conference, we're going to benefit from this. Burnley had to play a longer game than us against Everton. We're a young team. We're going to benefit. Second half, this is what I said in my press conference reaction. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer said we've got one of the best fitness departments in the world or something like that. We haven't. We get so many injuries and a lot of the times this season in the second half, we've drained. And we did today. And look, there's an excuse. It's the second game in 48 hours. But it was the second game in 48 hours for Burnley. They had way more energy than us in the second half. That first half, I couldn't see how Burnley get back into it. I'm like, we're going to win this 2-3-0. Second half, Burnley didn't really look like scoring, but they were much, much more energetic than us. And I don't know whether that was a lack of energy or a lack of tactics, but we played with fire second half. All we did, and look, I've said this as well, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wants time. He wants to stay in the job long enough to see through his vision. And what I would say is, I don't know what his vision is still. It starts with A and it ends in A. It's plan A. It's counter-attacking football. It's all he's got. And in the second half, he wanted to counter and win that game 2 and 3-0. And he wins it 2-0 with a counter-attack with the last kick of the game. But for 45 minutes in the second half, we didn't do enough. We were wasteful when we got the ball. Burnley were winning the second balls. We've won the game and that's the big positive. And we've won 2 games in a row and that's the big positive. But again, we've benefited from mistakes. And again, we've not really done enough as a team for me to be going, where is this vision, Ollie? At some point, you've got to show us what it is you want time for. Because we're still only a counter-attacking team. And a counter-attacking team, as I said, we deserve to win today. And that's a massive 3 points. And we are back in a top 4 race, which I said in November, we're not in a top 4 race. It's gone. We are back in it. And we are back in it because, without question, this is the worst Premier League season I can remember in a long, long time. And people will say when Leicester won it, it was bad. Bloody hell. I mean, come on. Liverpool are winning this league in the most dominant way ever. They've not won a title in 30 years. They are shit. Like, they're not even being tested. And they're a good team, Liverpool, now, but they've not won a title in 30 years. If anybody was anywhere near them, they would bottle it because of all the pressure of not winning it for 30 years. And they're going to win their first title in 30 years, you know, with a blindfold on. It's ridiculously easy. And the only reason Liverpool are going to win this title so easily is because they're the only consistent team. Everybody can beat anyone. Look at Chelsea losing at home to West Ham and Southampton this December. Spurs can't buy a win away from home. Arsenal are a joke. Leicester have been very consistent. They're miles ahead of us. Man City have been terrible. But that fourth spot is up for grabs. I mean, at the moment, you'd say it's between us and Wolves. Because Chelsea, you never know what they're going to do. Arsenal, forget about it. Mourinho's, United fans already know Mourinho's done. So we're back in a top 4 race after our worst start to the Premier League season ever. It's brilliant. It's actually brilliant. And some people are saying negative. I ain't being negative. I'm being absolutely realistic. I think it's brilliant that we're in a top 4 race. But it's also absolutely essential, where I'm going with this, that we buy midfielders in January. I said this last night and I wanted to... This is where I'm going with this. We need to buy midfielders in January. So for everybody who says you're moaning, I'm moaning for a reason. McTominay's out for a month. Fred was superb today. Pogba is back. Matic ain't good enough. We need another midfielder. And what I'm saying is, the top 4 was gone. It should be gone. But because there's so much shit in this league, we've got an opportunity to grab top 4 for probably the 5th or 6th time. It's right there in front of us. We go and beat Arsenal on Wednesday, which we should do because they're shit. We're probably in the top 4 in January as the transfer window opens. This club has got to spend the money. They're backing the manager. The players are backing the manager. The fans are sticking by the manager. We're saying, let's just see what happens, right? They've got to give him some money in January. They've got to sign him a midfielder. Because what I'm terrified of, and I'm repeating myself here, I'm terrified that we are got so many games coming up in January and February that we will lose a Fred. McTominay we're probably already lost for a while. That Pogba will pick up another knock. And our season will fall away because we don't have a big enough squad. We are now in a top 4 race. We are in a cup battle in a few cups. We've got to go and sign players in January. And that is all on Woodward and the Glazers. They've got to bring some players in because we have got ourselves back into something. I'm not going to say we don't deserve to be in it because it's not our fault that the rest of the league shit as well. We do deserve to be in a top 4 race. There's so much shit in that league. They're all as bad as each other. Why shouldn't we be in a top 4 race? So I don't agree with we don't deserve to be in it. We're probably a little bit lucky to be in it in relation to other seasons we're stronger. I mean, Mourinho got the sack with more or less the same points. But we're in a top 4 race. The club have now got to give him the money. That midfield desperately needs some investment in it, without a shadow of a doubt. And that's the big thing I wanted to say about that. But I will also say before I do the player ratings that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has got to do more. As a manager, he's got to do more. Those players won that game today because on the break, we've got some fantastic players. Martial one-on-one. Rashford gets through one-on-one. You fancy them to score. They're in very good vein of form at the moment. Fred, the midfield, did battle really, really well. Brandon Williams was superb at left back. I thought Dan James and Young, we'll talk about them in a minute. But United battled to a win today. And sometimes you've got to battle for a win. And I wouldn't say that was a bad performance from United today because over a 38-game season, you're going to get games like that. Unfortunately, in games like that, we've lost too many this season. But we won it today. So credit to the lads. But that second half needs to be managed better. Like, against better teams, you're going to get punished. You can't just sit back and think we're going to hit them on the break. Burnley weren't getting caught on the break that much, and they were getting a lot of ball in our final third. They were very wasteful with it, but I don't think they had good enough players to deal with it. So Ollie's got to find different ways to play. But this is not new. Any United fan, whether they're Ollie in or Ollie out, knows this. He's only got one way of playing. And it's 4-2-3-1, and it's let's hit them on the break. And he needs to find different ways. Burnley got back into the game in the second half because they changed the way they were playing. Not many of you might have noticed that. It was 4-4-2 in the first half, and he changed what he did in the second half. McNeil, who didn't do much in the first half, was, I felt, the best player in the second half. Not just for Burnley, but in the whole game. So they changed it. Ollie didn't. He's got to find a plan B. At the highest level, you've got to have different ways of playing. And I don't think he does that enough. And that's something we need to watch. But at the moment, we've got a bit of momentum. And we've got a bit of consistency. And that is very important. And he'll be smiling tonight. And why shouldn't he be? He's been gifted 6 points over Christmas. The players have responded. Martial's got 3 goals in 2 games. I said this at the start of the season. And I'm pissed off it's not come to pass. I actually said at the start of the season that Anthony Martial would outscore Aubameyang. And I got laughed at. But Martial's missed a lot of games through injury. He's also not really got the service. I genuinely think that Anthony Martial can score the goals that United need. And I think Anthony Martial can be a 20, 30 goal a season striker if we give him the service. So, but Ollie needs a plan B, and a lot of people are saying it, and we do need that. And I don't care what anybody says, because I think that if you are Ollie out, I respect you. If you're Ollie in, I respect you. I don't think that 2 results against Burnley and Newcastle mean Ollie's back at the wheel. At the same way, I don't think if we lose against Arsenal on Wednesday, people should be Ollie out. You should make your own mind. And I'm not going to be saying that I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is the long-term manager for Manchester United because we beat Burnley and Newcastle when they gifted us goals. But we certainly didn't deserve to lose those games, and we certainly deserve to win them. And I hope more than anybody that this is a platform for us to find some consistency. And I think the real positive from these 2 wins are not only the 6 points. I really do think we'll go into that Arsenal game with momentum and confidence. And also, confidence and momentum is massive in football. We saw a year ago under Ollie, he went on this great run, and I really wish we'd beaten Watford, because that would be another 3 points. But we didn't. So we are where we are. We've got another chance at top 4. But if we beat Arsenal on Wednesday, you then go into a very tough FA Cup game against Wolves, which I think we've got a chance of winning that FA Cup. And if we beat Wolves out, why not? Then we've got Man City, which is a big test. So the games are getting better and more of a test for us as we pick up wins. And I think that's really, really good. Ollie is looking more toxic than the outers, for fuck's sake, says Joe Stanley. Well, look, I've got no problem with people being Ollie in. I think it's great. Because I think ultimately United fans only want United to win. I think that's all we ever want. I just think that Ollie wants time. And I don't blame him for wanting time, but I still don't see what he's doing any different from when we lost to West Ham or Newcastle. I can tell you now, you could go and watch us play West Ham and see the same performance that you saw tonight. There's no difference in the tactics. It just went our way, and it didn't go our way against West Ham. If you place, look, in a very simple sentence, it doesn't matter what you think about United, it doesn't matter what you think about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. If your only plan is counter-attacking football, you will win some games, you will lose some games, you will struggle for consistency, because you're totally reliant on how your opposition plays. If they sit back, you're going to struggle to score. If they attack, you're going to get chances on the break if you defend well. We are a counter-attacking team. We will win games, we will lose games. What we need to find is consistency to win games week in, week out. Anyway, let's do the player ratings, because I think this is Ninja Smurf United says, I absolutely agree with everything you're saying, Mark, and the one saying you're negative. Realism and facts and negativity for the brainwashed and naive. Yeah, but I don't want to say that, because I'm not in any way intending to be negative. My comment about that was deemed negative was building towards the tip of the iceberg, which, if you listened, was we've got to sign players in January, which actually isn't to do with Ollie. We've got to sign players in January. We're back in a top 4 race. We've got all these cup games to come. We've been woefully weak in the midfield all season and the attack. For some reason, well, we know why, because the league is a bit shit. Everybody's very inconsistent, including us. But we are in a top 4 race. We are in all the cups, and we have not got enough depth in the midfield and the attack. Go and spend money in January, and this season we can salvage something from what looked like being a dreadful season. We could get Champions League football. We could win a trophy as well. It's there in front of us. The club have got to spend money. That's negativity. If the club don't sign players in January, that's negativity. That's something to moan about. Tonight's nothing to moan about. Tonight is, let's look at it tactically. How did he do this? How did he do that? That's fine. But we won. We've got 6 points from the last 2 games. It's given us a great opportunity. And I said this I said it was going to be exciting at Christmas. And I think it's going to be exciting over the next few weeks. We've got to grab it. And the club have got to grab it as well. Let's do the player ratings. So De Gea, for me, I'm going to give a 7. Some people would say give him a 6, but he made a really good save. He was very commanding in his box. You've got to be commanding when you've got Burnley basically lining up on your 6-yard box. You've got to own your penalty box. He did. He had that good save from Bardsley. I thought De Gea played well tonight. Ashley Young, I'm going to give him a 6 because we won. I think if we'd drawn, we're going to give him a 5. I don't know whether Ashley Young was impacted by that fall on his back in the first half, but he didn't get forward much. And I know that was probably tactical, but we didn't need to do that. We should have been going down the right-hand side like we were going down the left-hand side. I don't think Ashley Young was that good today, but I'll give him an average 6. Lindelof, again, I'd give him a 6. I mean, I think I really like Lindelof, but I thought that he gave a couple of silly fouls away. I think he got a bit intimidated by the physicality of Burnley, but we didn't concede, so nothing wrong with that. Harry Maguire would give a 7. I think Harry Maguire's had a lot of stick lately, but he actually did defend well today. We needed him to defend well today. It's our first clean sheet in the Premier League, and he won a lot of high balls, which is what he needs. That's what we bought him for today, and he did do quite well. So I give him a 7. Brandon Williams was an 8. First half, I thought he was really superb at providing the width. Second half, he got tired. He's a young lad, but he didn't get exposed defensively. I think it was a game of two halves for Brandon. First half, he got forward really well. Second half, he defended well. So he's a contender for man of the match. Matic, I'm going to give a 7. Look, I agree with Matic playing today. He's part of the squad. There was no McTominay. There was no Pogba. He had to play. He did well. Playing against Burnley suits Matic. You can stand on the middle of the pitch. You can be a post box, and you can just, be an obstruction. Burnley are not a creative team. They're not a quick team. So it suited Matic today, and I thought Matic played well. I thought Fred... I'm going to give Fred a 9, and Fred was my man of the match, which is a bit of a hint, really, because I thought Fred was superb first half. I thought he shaded it from Brandon Williams. He ran the midfield, and I thought second half, for the first 15 minutes, he was even better. He definitely dropped off, but he's just played 2 games in 48 hours, and I think we can all forgive him for that. But even in the last half an hour, he didn't stop going. He kept fighting, and I think for somebody to play 2 games in 48 hours and put in 2 performances like he did, for a player that many thought might be a flop, that had a very difficult first year, I think Fred, this month of December, will hands down be Manchester United Player of the Month and deserves to be. On top of that, I think he should be a contender for Premier League Player of the Month. I think he's been that good. I think Fred has been superb over the last month. And to do that over 2 days... I think he basically won us that game today. I thought he was that relentless, and I hope he keeps getting better and better, because I never know. I think with Fred and McTominay, we don't know how good they're going to be. Are they Everton midfielders? Are they top 4 midfielders? Could they be title-winning midfielders? Are they relegation midfielders? Who knows? Because we don't know what United are yet. But Fred, it's dangerous how good he could become. He's starting to look like the £50 million midfielder that we signed, and that is very exciting. And I think a lot of you said it as well with Fred. We were talking about it when we played Wolves away in March. He needs a run of games. That's the only way we're going to find out how good he is. And it felt like he wasn't ever going to get that run. He got a couple of games in March, then everyone came back and Ollie dropped him. And through injuries and lack of depth, Fred's had to play. And he's had to play week in, week out, and he's got better and better with more games. And I think some players are like that. We saw it with Lindelof as well. You've almost got to play them through the bad period to get them the consistency of you. And that's what's happened with Fred. The more games he's played, the more he's got adjusted to the Premier League, and the better he's got. And I thought he was superb today. So smash a like on the video. Fred was your man of the match. I thought he was brilliant. I mean, some people are Bing Bong Bing says give him a 10. I thought he was superb. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. Interestingly enough, Vincente says give Pereira man of the match. Not for me. I mean, look, I would give Pereira a 7. I don't think Pereira did anything more than a Matic or a Harry Maguire today. I thought he was good. But what I like about Pereira that I don't like about Jesse Lingard, and I would give Jesse Lingard a 4 today. I thought, again, that substitution with 20 minutes to go was totally about energy, because Pereira played against Newcastle as well. So you've got 2 players with Fred playing their second game in 48 hours. Bringing Lingard on was about energy. You can't bring Mata on because he's slower than your Gran. So he brought Lingard on, and Lingard just offers... He's just somebody who's going to run around. With Pereira, I'm not saying Pereira's... I don't know how good Pereira's going to be again. I think Pereira probably isn't a top 6 player, really. He's probably a bench player. But what Pereira does have that Lingard doesn't is creativity. If you give him space, he can pick a pass, and that's what he did with the first goal. And he's done that a couple of times. So I think Pereira has improved. I don't know whether he's going to quite be good enough, but I think Pereira has improved. And I thought, without him, we wouldn't have got that goal. So he closed him down, and he won the tackle. And he played the killer pass. Rashford, I'd give a 7. I just think Rashford is a player that is both scintillatingly good and frustratingly bad at times. I mean, there was a time in the second half when he's running through and he's just wasteful. But he's in a very confident vein of form, and he's a very big threat, and that's what happened with the second goal. He infuriates me with his free kicks. I think because of that goal he scored against Chelsea, we're going to see him shooting from free kicks a lot this season. And I think we spent £80 million on Harry Maguire, and I'd like to see us mixing it up a little bit to try and use that, because he ain't going to score many of those free kicks. But I thought Rashford played well today. He always gives his all, and it suits him off the left. I think when he plays down the middle, we saw it in the first 2 months of the season, he's a totally different player. He gets lost. But off that left-hand side, he finds space. And I think he believes. I think the great thing about Rashford at the moment is the comparisons with Ronaldo are somewhat ridiculous, but he believes those comparisons, and that makes him a better player. He believes in himself, and belief is a big, big thing. And I think Rashford at the moment is a very dangerous player going into that Arsenal game. I think Anthony Martial, I'm not going to go mad about Martial today. I'm not going to give him some 8 or anything like that, but I thought Martial played well today. Burnley are an absolute shithouse of a team to play against. They're physical. They boarded on red cards a few times. And when you're the centre forward against their centre backs, you've been in a game. And Martial just did it, and he's doing that week in, week out. And he could have had a second goal. I thought that was a bit harsh that a foul was given against him. I think he nearly could have had a penalty, but he took his goal well. He worked hard, and he's becoming more of a threat. So I thought Martial played well today. And Dan James, I'm going to give him a 5. And I'm going to give Dan James a 5 because I nearly gave him a 6, because in the last 15 minutes when Burnley were pushing forward, Dan James became a threat because there was so much space. And he got fouled a lot. And I do feel like giving Dan James a 6, but I also think he ain't playing that well at the moment. And I think Dan James needs to be on the bench for the last 20 minutes. He is a threat, but he's not doing quite enough. And you know what I'm going to say. Mason Greenwood's got to start against Arsenal. Mason Greenwood is delivering every game, whether it's assists or goals out of nothing. And at the moment, Dan James just isn't quite. And I feel sorry for him a bit because he does put crosses into the box sometimes, and we know our forwards don't always read them. But he was guilty of that himself in the first half. Brandon Williams put a lovely cross in, and he may as well have been back on holiday because having his Christmas dinner, because he was nowhere near it, and he's not anticipating those runs. But I always felt that Dan James was a work in progress. I think he will be a great player for United, but at the moment I just think he's a little bit off the boil. So I'd put him on the bench, and I would play Greenwood against Arsenal. So that's what I would do. And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I'd give him a 7 today. I think 6 points from 2 games are massive for him. Having lost, it's not even a week since we lost to Watford, so we've bounced back. Are we still inconsistent? Of course we are. We're massively inconsistent. That's what we are. We did only lose to Watford a week ago. And then we drew to Everton before that. The 2 games before that, we beat Spurs and City. The 2 games after Watford, we've beaten Newcastle and Burnley. We've got Arsenal on Wednesday. We've got Wolves after that. And then we've got Man City. So, look, I want to see some consistency. And I think we've got one of the worst times we've ever had as a United fan. It's never been this bad. Like, Liverpool are going to win the Premier League. That, for a proper United fan, is horrible. It's a horrible situation. And I would imagine most of you feel like me, because if you don't get how horrible it is that Liverpool are going to win the league, then you really don't understand what United's all about. That's going to happen. There is not a scenario where we can say no matter what happens, this season's a disgrace because Liverpool are going to win the league. Well, look, we could finish mid-table and Liverpool can win the league, or we can get top 4, win a domestic cup, and Liverpool win the league. And we know what we want. I want United to get top 4. I want United to win a cup, because these are nice things. But the background I want to say here is, whatever you feel about today, whatever you feel about Ollie, whatever you feel about the players, the most important thing to take away from this is to be vocal in your mind or with your mouth that this club has got to spend money to get us out of this situation. And out of this situation can be as short term as we're 1 point off top four, let's spend some money in January to get top four and win a domestic trophy. Or it can be as long term as Liverpool are winning the league, we need to spend big money in the summer to get after our biggest rival. But either of those scenarios come back to the same thing. Whatever you think about this team and whatever you think about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, that team is not good enough to get us where we need to be. And that's knocking Liverpool off their perch again. Sir Alex Ferguson said it all those years ago, and we need to be saying it now. Messing around for top four, winning Carabao Cups, that ain't United. I'll take it for this season, but that's not United. We need to get knocking that liver bird off its perch. And the only way we're going to do that is if this ownership give us the funds to do it. And that starts, people, in 4 days' time on January the 1st. Because I'll tell you what, if we don't buy a midfielder in January, we are jeopardising everything we have in front of us now. Whether that's a Carabao Cup, an FA Cup, a Europa League or a top four race. We will have another injury crisis. Do not trust this fitness squad at United. They're not up to it. We will have more injuries. We will fade in more games. We need players in that midfield and attack, and we need them now. And that will define and dictate what happens to us in the rest of the season. Because we know on our day we can beat anybody. We've already beaten City and Spurs. We've beaten Burnley today. We can beat anybody in that league. But consistency is only going to be helped by having players. Nitesh Vanmar says, focus on ourselves. We can't stop Liverpool. Well, no, I'll never not focus on Liverpool because they're our biggest rival. And if they're above us, we shouldn't ignore that. They didn't. Manas Sama says, you know how Lingard finds space, opponent defenders don't care about him. Mojo says, so we have Wan-Bissaka, Pogba, Greenwood, Shaw to come in against Arsenal. That looks nice. Karen Took the Kids says, big question on Fred was if he could play without any particular players around him. He's proved on several occasions he can now. He's been unreal for us. Christopher Solberg says, Lindelof was great, could have assisted Martial. Jacob Slattery, did you know Haaland signed for Juventus? I don't know whether he signed yet. I know there's rumours about it. We as fans shouldn't turn on each other, says Liam Brown. Well, idiots are always going to do that, aren't they? Because they can't open their minds to opinion. Exus TV says Lingard has to go, need a plan B striker and midfielder, and Ollie has to start bringing on subs earlier than the 70th minute. Ollie can get things done, give him funds. Sean Finity, love how Fred has come good, but he's played 90 minutes for two matches and we're going to play him in 90 minutes all January. Pogba and Matic can't do what he does, sign midfielders. Totally agree with you, mate. Is there going to be a night show after this, says Marky? What, 10 o'clock at night? No. John Stanley says Ollie inners looking more toxic than Ollie outers. Haaland has signed for Juventus, says Jacob Slattery. I don't know whether this has been confirmed. Happy Pogba didn't start. If he had, then Dan James treatment, everyone would have been complaining. Poor second half, but our midfield needs improving in January. Well, look, on Pogba, it's worked. The gamble worked. I would have played Pogba today and not played him against Newcastle. We did that. It worked. Ollie got it right. You gamble sometimes. He got it right. I would take a scruffy 3 points than an unlucky one, says Joe Holdway. Exactly. It was about winning today. Clean sheet, Matic and Young played a mature, experienced game and played decent. Fred and Williams bossed it. James is a bloody Duracell bunny. Never stops, says Josh Sutton. John G. Williams over Shaw all day, every day. Man of the match today. Well, I think you're absolutely naive to that. I thought Brandon Williams was good today, but I think if you think Brandon Williams can play every week, you don't understand football. He is a young lad who needs to be nurtured as much as Greenwood does. He can't play every game. As I've said, Shaw and Williams should be sharing that role, and that's what will happen. Brandon Williams is not ready to play week in, week out at left back. It'd destroy him. He can't do it. Southpaw Love Sports says, for those asking in the chat, what would it take to turn us Ollie Outers around? How about more than just 2 fairly lucky wins in a couple of days? Have to do it for longer. Matic surprisingly okay, 7, and Fred 8, says Strutson. Tony makes me moist with his play, says Sharon Koshel. Get Pellegrini in, says James Keane. Wasn't pretty, but it was hard fought and gritty. I'll take it. A rare clean sheet as well, says Southpaw of Sports. That clean sheet is very important, by the way. James Parker, shout out for DJ tonight. Doesn't have the ability of our other front men, but he's got heart. Got poleaxed repeatedly, but didn't faze him. Kept going and delivered at the death. Yeah, I feel guilty for giving him a 5 now. I think perseverance, I probably should have given him a 6 or a 7. Fred and Williams, man of the match, says Stephen Hunt. I don't think anybody would actually argue with that one. Please do do subscribe to the channel if you're new, by the way. Bottom right-hand corner to do that. Fan cams are being uploaded as we speak. Big Christmas for Manchester United, though. 6 points. That's the minimum that we needed to take, and I don't think many of us expected us to do it. So 6 points for United. We've had a few gifts along the way from our opposition, but that's what Christmas is all about, of course. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new. Bottom right-hand corner, please do smash a like as well. And look, we're building towards that Arsenal game now. And I'm tell you what, for one, I'm going to really enjoy the content we're going to be doing with AFTV over the next few days, because we're 7 points ahead of Arsenal, and small victories should be celebrated. So thanks everyone for watching. Watch out for the fan cams. Much love to you. It is still Christmas, New Year to come, and hopefully it's going to be an exciting one. But I'll keep saying this. The board have got to go out and spend money in January. If we come out of January with no midfielders, it's an absolute shit show from the Glazers and Woodward. And it's a bloody disgrace. You've got to go out and sign some players in January. There can be no excuses about, I didn't want one from Ollie. The money was there, but I didn't want one. It's got to be the right player. Screw that. We've got an opportunity to get top four. We've got an opportunity to win some trophies. Go and get some midfield depth in there. Otherwise, it's going to all fall away with another injury crisis. Go and get it done. Thanks for watching. Speak to you all soon.